Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio 13, The Rise of Femfascism. I'm your host, Allison Tiemann, generally loathed and despised by feminists for pointing out that playing the damsel is indeed a traditional gender role, and also internalized mahoganies. With me today is Karen Strawn, otherwise known as Girl Writes What, Hannah Wallen, Rachel Edwards, our naughty nerdess, Brian Martinez, Mike Stephenson, or Dr. Randomercam, and special guest Lauren Southern. Before we get on with it, I'd just like to make a brief call.
Allison?
Yes, nope, sorry, just a brief dropout, I apologize. With me, okay, no, I did that. All right, sorry, oh my god, this is so much incompetence amateur hour. I apologize, people. Before we get on with it, I'd just like to make a brief comment to the topic. If it was any other ideology racing headlong towards fascism, we'd be targeting them instead. But right now, feminism is way out in front in ushering in state authoritarianism. And if you think feminism can't be criticized, you're not just part of the problem, you're the reason why feminism is way out in front in the race to totalitarianism. Now for some shilling. I've resurrected the Honey Badger Tumblr, so please go to Tumblr and subscribe. Honey Badger Radio. Together we can carve out an oasis of sanity from the chaos of feels and outrage-gasms. And don't forget to follow Honey Badger Radio on Twitter at Honey Badger Bite. Or join our Facebook group, a veritable hub of activity and discussion centered around the latest news. Once again, go to Facebook and check out Honey Badger Radio. Finally, if games are more your thing, head over to our Steam group, Honey Badger Radio Gamers with Bite. There are giveaways and other community activities sure to excite and amaze. Now let's get to the mailbag. Whew. This has been quite the intro, and again, I apologize. This is an inquiry by Mike. I was reading about the Stonewall riots earlier this week, and I'm curious if the Honey Badgers think that something like this will happen sometime in the next 50 years as the men's movement moves forward. Does it need to? Can we avoid it? What do you guys think? Do you think we're going to end up with something like the Stonewall riots?
I think that, honestly, we're the reason that the fact that we exist is the reason why that won't happen.
Really?
Yeah, no, I think that essentially the Stonewall riots, things like that, they tend to happen when people have no process by which to address their grievances, no formal process available to them. And so if there's one thing that we can actually do, it would be to provide some formal avenues for men to address their grievances as men. And I think that men are much more likely to swallow a grievance that derives from him being a man than he is from him being, one that's from him being black or Christian or Muslim or some other aspect of his identity. Men are much more willing to swallow all of the horrible shit that gets thrown at them if they associate that with masculinity, with the role of being a man. And so I think that essentially what we're going to hopefully see is that if we can chip away at the edifice and carve some handholds and footholds in there for men to be able to get their issues addressed, then there won't be those riots.
Okay. So Mr. Mini Bagel says, can you give my channel a shill? And that would be youtube.com/Mr. Mini Bagel. So I guess, yes, I can give your channel a shill. Mr.
I
Mini
can
Bagel.
totally give his channel a shill, too, because I think he's like 12 years old or something. I'm just joking. I know he's older than 12. But, but you're so young. And, I'm 44, so everybody's young. But yeah, no, your content is really, particularly for someone as young as you, it's very extremely top-notch, mature, and yeah, I would recommend Mr. Mini Bagel to anybody. So entertaining and also smart and snappy.
Okay, and he also offers another topic suggestion. What do you say to people who say men's rights activists don't help men in third world countries, gay men, black men, etc.? I can actually answer that. Unlike feminism, the issues that men's rights activists try to bring attention to and men's rights advocates try to bring attention to actually affect black, poor, gay, and non-white straight men, except for suicide. They affect marginalized men, even more marginalized groups of men worse, whereas the issues that feminists bring attention to generally affect white, wealthy women more, like the wage gap,
And the
and
glass ceiling
the glass ceiling, and also
yeah.
the supposed rape epidemic on college campuses. It's actually
Yeah.
worse in inner cities, but of course,
And the pink tax.
women in inner cities aren't wealthy, aren't generally the demographic.
And often they're like
interests
brown or
feminists.
black or something like that, and they just don't make pretty victims, right? So,
Not to mention the fact that the people that ask that question usually are feminists, and feminists actually demonize men in third world countries as rapists and bullies and violent, brutal attackers of women, and then the reason that those countries are in poverty and the reason that those countries are war-torn and so on. So to accuse men's rights activists who actually advocate for those men of doing nothing for them while they are busy demonizing those men themselves is pretty hypocritical.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, conservatives often demonize those men in those exact same ways.
But feminists also marginalize male victims, deliberately marginalize male victims of rape and violence in those areas in programs that are funded by world governments to help rape victims and disability sufferers and so on. They actually take measures specifically to exclude men. They promote a narrative. I've actually written an article about this. I say that about everything, but I've written an article about this. It's on the Honey Badger Brigade site. I cannot remember the title, but it has to do with Time Magazine Online publishing a short article claiming that disabled women are often excluded from victim services in third world countries. And when I went through and researched it, I found that disabled women were not excluded, but men were.
Yeah, no, Oxfam actually indicated to all of the NGOs that they funded in the war-torn regions like the Congo that if 80% or more of the funding didn't go to services for women, they would just cut off the funding altogether.
Yeah.
So you literally have men who have been brutally, repeatedly raped and tortured, sexually tortured often, and they come into these NGOs for help, and the doctor gives them a Prozac and tells them, okay, that's all I can do for you. And, honestly, some of these men, they're fecally incontinent. They need surgery to repair the damage to their bodies, right? And there's nothing available for them. And one of the really horrible things is once their wives find out that they were raped, they were sexually brutalized in this conflict, they're like, oh, well, so this guy can't protect me, I'm leaving. And the whole family just abandons him. Right?
Okay.
So these men
and
don't
the minute we start talking about these things, the minute men's rights activists start talking about these things, you know what feminists do? Oh, look
Full
at
fire
the
alarm.
whiny piss babies.
I know.
Whining about what?
Stop
Don't you know this is men's fault? They deserve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the victim.
Guys, next letter.
Great.
Quiet. Okay, Adam writes, hi, Badger Peoples. Well, hello, Adam Peoples. Our mental feminist, or our local mental feminist, who leads our Human Rights Commission, has released the following website to show the vast gap of men versus women. I don't know how to attack this bollocks effectively. They won't release the raw data. Any suggestions? I think it's the usual situation where they only consider equality when women are
behind.
Or inequality when women are behind. But if men are behind, that's equality.
I missed what organization this was from.
Oh, it's at trackingequality.hcr.co.nz.
Is it a government-funded study?
It's probably a government-funded study.
If it is a if it's a government-funded study and a government department-cited study, he can file a Freedom of Information Act request with the department that it was used by, but don't count on getting the information, because I did that with the CDC regarding their data on sexual violence, intimate partner and sexual violence, and the researchers actually hid the raw data at a university where it is behind a wall of, you can't have this unless you agree to interpret it the way we say that you have to interpret it, through our filter of gender ideology.
Nice.
And you have to have certain academic credentials to see it, even though it is information that is covered by the Freedom of Information Act.
What drives me crazy?
Social policy.
What drives me crazy about just let me just, because one of the founders of Reddit killed himself, right? And the reason he killed himself was because he was facing, decades in prison for essentially hacking into JSTOR, which is a website that hosts academic papers, right? It's almost all of them behind paywalls. And what you have here is you have a situation where, and I can understand wanting to profit from your own labor. I do as an author. But when you have a situation where so much of this research is funded directly or indirectly by government, it might be three steps removed from the government, but it's government money, it's taxpayer money, right? And then you withhold that information from the people who paid you to generate it. That's just obscene.
Especially when you're using it to lobby for law and policy that's going to govern those people's lives.
Yes.
And now there is recourse if your Freedom of Information Act rights are violated, if you file a request and you are denied the information wrongfully. I have not done the research to find out what I would have needed to do in order to counter that, in order to get that information. And at some point in the future, I might file another Freedom of Information Act request for later versions, because the NISVS gets done, I think, every year.
2 years, I think. 2 years. 2010, 2012, 2014.
So it's possible to file again, request the information again, and if they do that again, go through the process of countering or combating having been wrongfully denied. And so if you seek that information, if there is a department you can write to, be prepared to do that just in case.
Well, there were some things especially that they left out that I thought were really interesting, because they may have printed the previous year numbers for men made to penetrate, but when it came to the gender of the perpetrator, they only published the lifetime numbers for that. And they, it's not like they don't have the previous year numbers for that. Of course they do.
And this is information that they basically refused to make available to the public.
Yeah.
Which to me indicates that there is something to hide.
Yeah, well, there is something to hide.
And it's
what it
the
is?
Same thing.
It's that 99% of the previous year perpetrators are female.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because the rate of perpetration of women forcing sex on men in the last year is higher than 80%, most likely.
Well, considering
and also
the rate of perpetration when women have male victims in captivity, like in a juvenile detention system, it is 95% female when staff rapes the boys.
Yeah.
In a staff that is
I think it's even almost majority female when.
Okay, guys, don't talk over each other.
No, it's not. No.
But
perpetration in girls' situation is also, the majority of perpetration is not staff, whereas with boys, the majority of perpetration is staff. With girls, the majority of perpetration is other girls. But the majority, from what I've been reading, the majority of girls in juvenile detention, they don't seem to send them to detention centers when they commit crimes, but they do when they run away from home, which is stupid because a percentage of those girls are probably running away from abuse.
Yeah.
They're also, based on other research, they're also the group that is likely to have more bullying, people that'll act out what they've been taught at home.
Well, and they're also more vulnerable to being abused by others too.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about this topic is that they're finding that they now have tracked the last year numbers for sexual abuse of men and women. That is, forcing men being forced into sex and women being forced into sex, and they found that they're equal, or there are more men being forced into the sex in the last year for 2 years now. And yet, when they look at the 5-year numbers, the rate of male victimization drops to 30%. So it's like what it's shaping up to is that you could ask the general population 5 years in a row, if men and women, were you forced into having sex in the last year? And equal numbers of men and women would say yes. But then if on the last of that 5 years, you asked the same population, were you forced into having sex in the last 5 years, the number of male victims would drop to 30% of all victims.
Yeah, well,
Because those women have had 5 years of, oh, you poor thing. What?
Yeah, and the men have had 5 years of recontextualizing what happened to them.
What are you complaining about? You got
Well,
lucky.
to conform with the narrative, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, next letter. Wow, you guys shut up so quickly this time. Okay. Oh God.
Do we still have the duck or what?
No, please, Karen. I have to get through this name.
Okay.
Okay. This is going to be painful. I feel like I'm shredding my spleen trying to say this name. Zunique Shergwixi. First of all, if you decide to read this on air, which you can take as consent, you are under no obligation to pronounce this correctly. My name is unpronounceable in human tongue. Were it spoken correctly, our universe would cease to be deterministic, and reality would end. Well, thank you for warning me before I tried. I was at the Gigi and Vic meetup. I was the one with the Crit Happens shirt, and it was a wonderful experience for me. Like so many of us, life isn't going particularly well for me. I could go on complaining about it, but I'll pass for the sake of brevity. That day in particular, a couple things were happening at about the same time that had me feeling down. But an interesting thing happened. I step into the back and seeing my fellow shitlords, and I know I'm among comrades. I didn't have to prove anything to anyone, though I imagine the shirt helped. I started following these events a little before we even had the name Gamergate, but I was immediately struck with a sense of awe. This is what gamer culture is, and I am a part of this. Actually, sitting down and talking face-to-face with others was a bit different. I saw how much we all had in common, even if we're coming at this from different political beliefs and experiences. We were even expressing regret at how much we were all agreeing with one another. It seems we had a lack of diversity of belief. Was more that some people dominated the conversation. I also feel I should apologize for Anna for not objectifying her more. Undoing all that media conditioning is so hard. It's still very disrespectful, as I can tell she works very hard to be objectified, and I need to respect that better.
Damn straight.
Yeah, well, it is, you know, for me, I always get excited when I have someone to argue with. I'm looking at you, Kevin.
Oh, you stop. We don't argue. We disagree.
Yeah, we
Sometimes.
do. Yeah, sometimes. Quite a bit.
Like a married couple.
No, not married. If it was my boyfriend and I, I'd be yelling and he'd be like just kind of flapping his hands and going, just go be a bitch by yourself and walk away. And so I mean, but Allison and I, we seem to be able to disagree on certain things, certain very important things, but we seem to be able to disagree on those, but remain focused on the areas where we do agree, and that I think that's valuable. So
you don't argue, you disagree with great vehemence and flair.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, but not with much rancor. That's the thing. Like, I don't think that I don't have any antagonistic feelings toward Allison, even when we're disagreeing, and I don't think she does about me either. So.
No, I have all kinds of antagonism. I have all the antagonisms. I have the ocean of antagonisms.
Oh my goodness.
Fetch
Well,
the
that's
cello.
something I really like.
We'll settle
Fetch
this
the
now.
jello.
That's something I really like about people in this movement. I found that people I like to hang out with most are the people I can have those disagreements with and still be able to have respectful discussions with them afterwards, and we're still good friends after. So.
Yeah, it's amazing because we do disagree on fundamental, like, things that have divided our society fundamentally. I think we are all united in a belief that we should understand people as being human, primarily, and
Yes.
that they're what they bring to the table is brought to the table by someone who is human, and they may have had experiences that are negative, and they may be angry about those experiences, but there still is humanity in everybody's belief systems.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. And you don't change anger or hatred by excluding it or excluding the people who are expressing it. You listen to them, even if it hurts. So let's move on to the next. Thank you for that letter, by the way. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce your name again, but it is sweet.
Yeah, we don't want to end the universe, so.
No, if I get it right, which probably would be.
That would be the one time you pronounce something right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like the end of Doctor Strangelove.
The great irony is
We'll meet again.
the great irony is how many people mispronounce Timon as Timon. Look,
Yeah.
people, the universe didn't open the heavens and give us the name Team Man. The author mispronounced it as Time Man.
It is sort of a fake out because it does start with a tie and end with a man.
Yeah.
But
It's sort of cosmic irony anyway, because you mispronounce everything, so
Yeah.
the universe mispronounces you.
Okay, so Rob has made an inquiry. Thanks for the page icon. My bookmarks bar is happy. Yes, Rob, when I received your email, actually no, several weeks after I received your email and actually got to it, I did indeed update the bookmarks icon just for you. So I'm glad that you're happy. Christoph has made an inquiry. Just a quick question. Am I able to buy the great GG poster with the Stand Against Censorship writing on it? Thanks, Chris. Yes, you are able to buy it. Well, not at the moment, but you would be if I weren't lazy and actually put it on our store on our website. So I guess no, you can't buy it, but I guess I could make it possible for you to buy it in the future. I don't know, guys, do you want me to make it possible for you to buy the vinyl version of the
banner?
Banner? Would you like me to
great
make
idea.
it possible
Yeah,
to buy?
people love that thing.
You mean
Alright,
sell
then
the
I'll do it.
original?
Well, no, not the original. The original is safe with me and will never be sold. I'm just going to keep signing it, getting people to sign the back. But I
I
have
have an
some
idea for something you guys can sell that would do really well. A
panties.
calendar. Honey Badger's calendar.
Jonathan actually took some photos that could go into the calendar.
Anna's ahead
I
of the
suggested
game
that
here.
exact thing. I suggested that exact same thing in Calgary, and I suggested that it should just be with Mike, and he just makes very, very strange faces, like, "Why are you here?"
Or Mike,
Just every month.
cosplay.
Allison,
Every
after
month,
this
every
episode,
month.
you'll just have to be naked in spaghetti
Just-
for your.
Every month is just another confused picture of Mike's like, "Why are you here? Why are you taking pictures of me?"
Yeah,
I feel like
or,
I'm being microaggressed.
or we could
Oh,
just
you're
get
being
Mike.
macro
So
Here's an idea.
objectified, Mike.
Here's an idea. Let's get Mike to cosplay as each of us.
Oh God.
And we'll just take
No,
pictures of Mike.
No, let's get Mike to do like, the animations. Use those characters and put them in like, I don't know, sexy outfits and make them pose, for a girly calendar.
That sounds like a lot of work.
You
Karen, you
can
can't
several
animate the
Several
calendar.
layers into a fairy universe now, aren't we?
Yeah, okay, all right. Let's pull ourselves back into reality.
That's a bit risky.
Yeah, what, pulling ourselves
Extremely
back into...
risky. It's extremely risky. Don't go making it gay, Brian.
So what's the answer to the original question from the letter?
You mean actually answer their
email?
questions?
Yes,
not
we
just,
should answer the question.
not just hilariously dance around it. Yes, I could do that. I could make it possible for you to buy posters.
Also, Scathing Siegler suggests that we do jelly wrestling calendar.
Jelly wrestling.
A jelly. I'm assuming Jello.
Not Jello, jelly.
Yeah. Well, that's because Jello has a habit of suing people that, or threatening to sue people that officially use the name Jello. That's why there's a green jelly band instead of a green Jello band now.
Oh,
For those that are familiar with the green jellies, little pig, let me in, and the big bad.
I just want to say one thing about the Anna Cherry shoot. Jonathan, or that's my husband who did the photography, he noticed that he gave you a link to the Dropbox for the general honey badger radio images and also the Anna Cherry images, Karen, and he noticed the only one you joined was the Anna Cherry images.
Okay, I joined all of them. The only ones I looked at were the Anna Cherry ones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, make of that what you will, but I was just interested in exactly what Anna Cherry was getting up to in public, in full view of, like, several people on the decks of their boats moored outside of the, you know, just offshore.
Okay, all right, guys.
Just cosplay things.
Who's got the sound in the background?
I think Karen's in a mosh pit right now. It's
I'm not. That's not me.
Apparently Karen is calling from a mosh pit where she's
It's
probably
Anna.
destroying everyone around her.
It's Anna.
Oh, okay.
There is Stargate is Ju-on in the background. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Unbelievable. Make your boyfriend wear headphones. Jeez.
Yeah.
Anna Cherry is jamming out with her clam out.
Yeah, my porn friends are over watching Stargate. I'm introducing them to it. It's pretty awesome.
Okay. Well, if you could turn that down a bit, it might work better with the actual show. All right. So, final email. Patrick D has made an inquiry. I just saw an article and wanted to hear your comments and thoughts on the matter. I really do appreciate and support the work that this group is doing. If I had any money, I would certainly contribute, but I'm poor, so, well, then you're dead to us. In any event, keep it up. And the article is on a man facing 6 months in jail for disagreeing with feminists on Twitter, which I do think we actually have some thoughts on this article.
I really do. Actually, I think that's the entire point of this show.
Yeah. So better segues into show. Take it away, Rachel, if you have a summary.
Which one?
I like to dump you into the deep end. You weren't paying attention to the show that you are on.
I was, yes, so there was the thing with
okay,
it snuck up on her.
The Twitter harassment trial. Yes, I have that. Okay. I'm just being sure. All right, the Twitter harassment trial. Canadian graphic artist and father of four Greg Elliott is being charged with criminal harassment charges over Twitter. In 2012, two feminist activists, Steph Guthrie and Heather Riley, hatched a plot to harass a man named Ben Spur who created a Anita Sarkeesian punch-out game. When Greg Elliott expressed that he felt that this kind of harassment was wrong, the two activists brought him up on criminal harassment charges, which resulted in his arrest and the loss of his job. The only thing that seems more bizarre than the trial is that it's going forward despite the fact that there's no evidence of sexual harassment. Those investigating the case admit that it's not even being alleged that Greg Elliott threatened any of these women. The only conceivable reason for the trial being that these women are having the legal equivalent of a temper tantrum and are claiming that Greg Elliott made them feel unsafe by disagreeing with them politically. If convicted, he faces 6 months in jail. Discuss.
Okay.
Hello?
Wait, Karen.
Who's
wait. Back into the station.
What?
Lauren wants to shell.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
ahead, Lauren.
I am here to shell. I created a petition yesterday to help this guy out. He did lose his job, and although his 4 sons are adults now, I don't know what his financial situation is like, or even if he just is going through an emotionally tough time, which I imagine he is. So I created a petition just to show support and to hopefully reach out to his family or his lawyer and see if I can get in contact so I can start a Kickstarter if they need help with legal funds. I'm going to reshare it on my Twitter, and hopefully you guys at the Honey Badgers, I'll tag you too so you can share it. But if you can go and sign that, and if anyone in this conversation knows how to get in contact with him, please email me in the email I put in the petition. So I'm posting that to Twitter and tagging you.
The problem with trying to get in touch with him is the whole reason why he's unemployed right now is because as a condition of his bail, he agreed not to.
Yeah. Well, I want to get in touch with his sons.
So yeah.
Well, go ahead.
His sons or his lawyer or anyone who knows him.
Yeah. Like, honestly, it's obscene to me that because when you think of what Steph Guthrie was orchestrating against Ben Spur over the Beat Up Anita video game, which is a long and storied tradition among gamers that, you know, hated public figures either have punch-out games made about them, or they have they get hacked into an existing ultra-violent game, like Jack Thompson got hacked into, I think, Mortal Kombat, and you could throw him in a meat grinder and watch his pulp spray all over the walls, or rip his spine out. You know, like the public figures that are seen as adversarial to the community. The community seems to generally have no problem with those kinds of things being made. Until this one thing with this one feminist woman, and half of the community, the social justice half, the Arthur Chews and the Alex Lifshitzes and the, you know, the Brianna Woos and all of those, the literally who's, all of them were screaming that because this game existed, that meant that Ben Spur hates all women. Apparently it's not permissible for a man to hate just one woman, right? If he hates one woman for what she does, right, or what she believes in or what she stands for, then he must hate his mother and his daughter and every other woman on the planet. And Steph Guthrie bragged in a TEDx talk about her campaign of harassment against Ben Spur, right? She said, "Oh, you know, I debated whether I should sick the internet on him, but then I thought, you know, he'll get what he deserves, right? If his life is ruined, you know, that's not my fault. That's just a consequence of his actions," and all of this bullshit, right? When she's literally waging a harassment campaign against an individual, not just harassing him, not just inciting acts of harassment against him, but also she was phoning his employer, she was phoning potential employers, she was planning to wallpaper his hometown with posters naming and shaming him, right, to blacklist him among the community, right? I mean, like, she literally wanted to ruin this man's life, destroy his career, ruin his social standing, everything, right? And somebody disagreed with that strenuously and persistently, and that's the guy who's on trial.
You know, there's actually been a new development in this case. The story came out yesterday. The judge in the case revealed that he had received a letter, he says, from a stranger, and according to the letter, parts of which the judge read in court, the person claimed to be a former acquaintance of the three complainants in the case, and is saying that they conspired in the letter writer's presence to fabricate the criminal harassment complaint.
I just want to clarify that letter hit the judge's desk about 6 months ago, and that's when the story broke, and the judge actually called for an adjournment and ordered an investigation into criminal conspiracy. But one of the really horrible things is that because the investigation the investigation into criminal conspiracy, I don't think it's concluded yet, or I don't think it's conclusive. And therefore, the judge will not be allowed to consider that potential. It's not considered evidence. So when he's sort of essentially making his decision, he won't be able to consider that.
So in other words, because the guy wrote to the judge, the evidence is not considerable? The evidence can't be...
It's not presented in court, and at the moment it's a separate case. It wasn't presented as a piece of evidence. It was sort of an extraordinary circumstance. He said it was essentially unprecedented and highly inappropriate, but because of the nature of the allegations, he had to adjourn this particular case long enough to make sure that there was an investigation launched
Okay, okay, I
into,
can see where it
yeah.
was months ago. This was sent to me as new information yesterday by a fellow Twitter user, but this is old. But see, this doesn't. If this investigation ends up concluding that these people did conspire, that these women did conspire against this guy, how will it affect the case then? If
Well,
they end up
it would maybe give him grounds to appeal, but maybe not, because if the appeal on the basis of new evidence, but there would be no like wrong judicial decision basis for an appeal. But one of the things about whether these women are going to be vigorously investigated for over this is that Stephanie Guthrie is politically connected in Toronto, right? I would guess that the entire reason that this case actually made it into a courtroom is because she's politically connected. Because the police testified at the trial. There was nothing remotely threatening about any of the tweets. And even though you don't have to sexually harass somebody to be, guilty of criminal harassment, there was absolutely no indication that he was, they'd blocked him. He knew he was blocked. He was using their Twitter handles to identify them when he was talking about them, not to them. Right? And the only way that they would be able to see those tweets is if they went looking for them, right? Or if their followers were retweeting them.
So basically, they were, in one way or another, they were monitoring his Twitter usage.
Yes. So essentially it's like if I was sitting in my living room ranting about Anita Sarkeesian and she had a PI stationed in a freaking windowless van on my sidewalk with a like listening device pointed at my house, right? And then she listens to the recording and says I'm harassing her.
Yeah.
Well, you don't even need that. She just needs to feel unsafe. She just needs to feel unsafe, and that's the ridiculous thing about all this. He didn't threaten them. He didn't make any kind of sexual comments towards them. All he did was disagree, and that really seems to be the social justice definition of what constitutes harassment on Twitter.
I think he
disagree long enough.
I think he probably said that she was a horrible person a few times. Yeah,
but that's just telling the truth.
Yeah. Agreed. And you look at it like she's a public figure. She wants to be a public figure. She's the head of a political organization, right? Like, she wants to be a public figure. She does TEDx talks. She, gets interviewed on
the problem glasses.
The Q on CBC radio. She's like, she wants to be in the fucking spotlight, and yet somehow, right, Obama can handle all of those like nasty memes of him where they make him look like a chimpanzee, and Rush Limbaugh can handle that freaking meme where they photoshopped his head on the plucked body of a fucking chicken. Right?
For the record, Obama is not the only president they have done that to.
They're not. He's not.
As many memes of George Bush as a chimpanzee.
Of course.
It is not politically incorrect to make a white man look like a chimp.
Well, but you look at it, and like, Obama's not prosecuting those people. Rush Limbaugh's not prosecuting those people for saying shit things, for shit talking him on the fucking internet, on the radio, in comment sections, on Twitter, right? He knows he's a public figure. Obama knows he's a public figure. All of these public figures, they know that they are public figures and that people are not going to like some of the things that they have to say, and they're going to talk shit about them. Like, does Andy Dick, when he's reading mean tweets on the Jimmy Kimmel late night show, right, and he's reading out, that mean tweet that somebody sent to him, can I be the first in line to punch Andy Dick until there's bones in his stool, right? Is he going to prosecute that guy? No, he's not. He's just going to make a joke of it on a Jimmy Kimmel show.
Well, the other point I wanted to make is that these women are crying harassment after engaging in behavior that is 10 times worse than the individual that they're accusing. By their own definition, if he's guilty of harassment, they are 10 times guilty of harassment.
You know, like it just blows my fucking mind. You know, and if Ben Spur, right, is guilty of misogyny and you know, promoting violence against women for making that game, then Anita Sarkeesian is guilty of promoting murderous, you know, incitement to murder of game developers because she received a fan fiction that essentially depicted her murdering game developer Randy Pitchford in cold blood, right, while he was begging for mercy and, you know, and pledging to, or wait, you know, comic artist, and you know, saying, I'm going to mend my ways and I'm not going to do these misogynistic tropes anymore, just please don't kill me, and she just like shoots him in cold blood, right, in this fan fiction. She posted that on her fucking blog. It's still up, right? You know, so somehow it's okay to glorify in the idea that Anita Sarkeesian is shooting some guy that she disagrees with, right? You know, we're going to fantasize that about that, and we're going to think that that's like, you know, oh, that's just great, you know, oh, awesome, right? And yet somebody who doesn't like her makes a game where other people who don't like her can touch a screen and give her a black eye, right? That's somehow like the worst fucking crime in the universe. I don't.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's just the double think, the hypocrisy, and also Lauren, get in here now. I'm blocking her, so go.
Oh well, from what you guys were saying earlier about these ladies wanting to be in the spotlight, when you look at what Chris Murphy, Elliot's lawyer, was saying, he's like, these women, he said exactly in the National Post article, these women, they were not vulnerable. They are very accomplished, politically savvy women. If they can't handle being mentioned in the tail end of a political discussion on Twitter, then they're in the wrong business. And it's that quote right there that says, this obviously wasn't an offense thing. It wasn't they weren't genuinely afraid. They are in the political business, and this is a political statement for them. This is something they are using to garner attention, and they're taking the classic feminist protocols to ruin his life. And I'm actually curious as to what your guys' opinions is on this, but if Gregory Elliott loses this case and does go to prison for 6 months, do you think that this will genuinely set a precedent for future cases and you will start to see more individuals, possibly ourselves, go to trial?
Yes.
You do? You don't think that there'll be a huge outrage over it? I think there'll be a huge outrage, but...
There will be an outrage over it, but once a precedent is set, it's set, right? And then it needs to be overturned. You're right. He would need to appeal, and maybe public sentiment would help him in his appeal. Or there would, you know, the next case, there would have to be such a public outcry. But it would have to be an outcry, once the precedent is set, there would have to be an outcry on the scale of, you know, the outcry that made Mike Nifong engage in such a degree of prosecutorial misconduct that he eventually was disbarred, you know, for malicious prosecution in the Duke lacrosse case. You know, you literally had people protesting and, you know, holding out signs saying castrate them, and, you know, vandalizing the frat house, and, you know, and doing all of these things. You had this huge, massive, extremely loud public outcry. It would have to be a woman, I think, a woman being charged.
Yeah, the only way to fight fire is
precedent.
Yeah, the only way to combat this is going to be fighting fire with fire, and men are going to have to step up and start using the system the same way. But this is not a unique thing. It is a unique avenue for it. But this is basically women using accusations of bullying as a method of bullying. This is Sage talked about this previously because it was directed at him on the KSU men issue and the formation of Zen Men and keeping Zen Men going with regard to the conference that he had there. Everything they use accusations of harassment, accusations of bullying, accusations of sexism, accusations of all manner of aggressive targeting of women as a means of bullying other people to get what they want, or to, in some cases, even just to get their kicks. And I've seen this happen in other areas too. I've seen women use accusations, criminal accusations, accusations of assault, accusations of rape, accusations of violating restraining orders that were false restraining orders that they got by claiming falsely to be afraid of the
then
guy that they were. Yeah.
Were false.
And the violations were false. Like the one case that I actually directly wrote about that case, the woman claimed to be afraid of the guy, and then she would sit in court and lean toward him and glare at him, and yeah, like that's not fear.
No.
That's anger and hatred and vitriol. And she would use this damseling as a means to harass, and she was using it to try to wear him down to get a custody case overturned, a custody order overturned, or to get him to stop fighting her getting a custody order overturned. This is relational aggression on steroids, and it's not going to stop until men fight back legally hard enough. And when I say legally, I mean in court, I mean in legislation, and fight back in calling it out in speech, in rational speech. And it has to be rational speech, because anything that is the least bit less than rational from a man is going to be considered aggression. But it has to be called out. It cannot be allowed to continue unabated and unhighlighted, not called what it is, or it will continue to get worse.
Simply put, this is abuse. This whole case is abuse. It's harassment of this man who really didn't do anything wrong. The only thing he did was just disagree with these women and told them that this is morally wrong to harass people. And what they do, they went and they harassed him, and they tried to ruin his. Actually, they've already succeeded in for the most part, messing with his life. He's lost his job. The public opinion of him is probably not so great. It doesn't matter what ends up happening in this case. It's not easy to recover from something like this. When two young, pretty women drag your name through the mud and say that you're a terrible person and you're a harasser of women, it's
well, when a man wants to.
I wonder if we're even safe.
When a man wants to fuck somebody up, he's like, I'm going to hurt you. When a woman wants to fuck somebody up, she says, you're hurting me.
Yeah. I wonder if here in the U.S., because I know you guys are possibly at risk because this is happening in Canada, and so you, Allison, and you, Karen, and you, Lauren, this might have an effect on your ability to express yourself on Twitter, online, everything. But I don't even know if we're safe here in the U.S., really, with this.
Well, honestly, like I think that anybody who is enough of a thorn in the side of a feminist, like I would actually have to consider writing like a blog post about Jessica Valenti's last bullshit, or making a video mentioning her more than once, because even if I don't direct that video at her or that blog post at her, even though I don't direct her attention to it, essentially, she can then, if somebody directs her attention to it, she can claim that she's being harassed. And like it's so infuriating too, because when you look at it, and I've made this parallel so many times before, right? When if I was so mad at my boyfriend, right, that I really wanted to hurt him, and I hired a couple of guys, or I convinced them with my womanly wiles, right, to rough him up, beat him up a little bit, and then duct tape his hands and lock him in a tool shed for 3 days, right? I'd be guilty of a whole host of felonies, right? Violent felonies, kidnapping, assault and battery, forcible confinement, illegal restraint, all kinds of things, right? If I pick up the phone, dial 911, and tell the police he's hurting me, right? And they come and they rough him up a little and they slap cuffs on him and they shove him in a cell for a few days, right? All I'm technically guilty of is lying to the police, right? But in the spirit of the law, I have committed all those same violent felonies. Every single one of them. And when you use, and this is the whole reason why due process exists and why innocent until proven guilty exists. It is not to protect innocent men from being put in jail, at least not solely to protect that, innocent people from being put in jail. It is there to prevent the state from becoming the agent of oppression. It is there to prevent the state from deciding on a whim who belongs in jail and who doesn't.
Well, you're starting to see everything change with even innocent until proven guilty. Look at the law that was just passed in New York last week. I'm not sure if you're talking about that since I...
Yes means yes?
Yes means yes, or affirmative consent.
Yeah.
It's legitimately, the law is you have to provide the proof that you got consent. You are guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
Yeah.
And this is throughout campuses on the whole state, in California as well, and it's being implemented on campuses in other states as well.
There are people in the U.S., there are politicians in the U.S. who are trying to have it implemented into law. Not just on campus, but into law.
And for people who don't know what the law is, essentially, for any act, whether it be kissing, holding hands, anything that can be thought of as sexual, you have to be able to prove that the other person explicitly said yes. So they are legitimately handing out consent forms to students on campuses to sign, and then you both have to take a picture with the consent form. And not only that, you have to be getting consent for every act you do during sex. So if you've ever seen the video Feminism for Bros 105, where they're, can I kiss your cheek? Can I kiss your neck? Can I take off your shirt? That is what you are going to have to do. Or you could be accused of being a rapist, get kicked out of your campus. And if it gets put into federal law, we're all screwed. Or you're all screwed in the States.
Well, you know, what I thought was hilarious was there was a video, and Teal Deer did a takedown of it that was just glorious. He spent a lot of his time making this noise. Oh yeah, I'm so turned on, right? But it's essentially, it was a promotional video for a yes means yes, you know, consent is sexy type thing, right? And I'm watching this video of these two people who are supposedly, you know, in this, you know, highly intense sexual moment, you know, their first sexual encounter, and you know, he's like, is it okay if I, you know, take off my shirt? You know, oh, can you know, and she's like, can I help you? And he's like, yes. And they're, you know, and it's just like step by step by step, right? With this bizarre porny music playing in the background. And all I wanted to do was just like barf. It was
the worst.
It was so gross. It was just, it was like the uncanny valley. Mm-hmm. You know.
And I just wrote an article on this talking about how people, it's on Spiked online if you want to check it out. But yeah. if people don't, they like spontaneity. You look at all of these movie relationships, Noah and Ali in The Notebook. They're constantly, supposedly, quote-unquote, raping each other, jumping on each other, kissing each other without receiving any consent.
Oh, you remember that scene from Sea of Love where Al Pacino tears off Ellen Barkin's panties and all the women in the theater are just, like, drowning in their own bodily fluids?
Yeah, and you wonder why these, like, guys are like, oh, look at all these girls swooning over these guys' confident actions, that not meekly asking, can I give you a kiss on the cheek? When these guys are confident, women swoon over it. They love it. And guys want to emulate that if girls say that they love it. And based on 50 Shades of Grey and some of the highest read content by women and the movies they watch, yeah, they do like it.
They want, yeah. It is absolutely what they want, and they're drier than the Mojave Desert when men start asking permission.
And at the other end of this, it doesn't stop rape accusations. You could sign a form, you could videotape the encounter and demonstrate clearly that the girl was enthusiastic throughout the entire thing. And if at the end she changes her mind and says, I wish I hadn't done that, she can come back with a rape accusation. You cannot guarantee with any level of consent law that you are going to stop rape accusations by obtaining any level of consent at any given time, because feminists have convinced girls that retroactive changing your mind makes what happened when you were actively, willingly participating rape. But that's not actually what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to address something that was discussed in the chat back when we were talking, when I had talked about men needing to legally resist this stuff. And this goes right along with what I just said. Don't feel helpless. You are not helpless. You are half of society. Men are half of the population. You can write to your legislator. You can call your legislator. You can seek out the lawyers that specialize in men's rights issues and fathers' rights issues. You can band together online and pass information about these issues on to other people. You can talk to your friends and family. You can write about this. You can refuse to date women who behave this way.
Particularly, you can convince your female friends and family members to do all of those things, because that will be a huge help.
And you can teach your kids what is right. And then the other thing is, if you're a young man, if you're in high school or you're just starting college, and you're still trying to figure out your profession, and you're a smart guy, go into law, go into politics. Go into these areas and start making change. Go into journalism and start writing about these things. Go into the professions where you can have an impact. Don't take being told that you can't talk because you're a man. Don't take being told that you don't have any rights because you're a man. And don't take being told that you can't make a difference because you're a man, because that's bullshit. Because the same people that are telling you that you can't talk and you can't make a difference are the ones that have been accusing you of keeping them down by controlling the world. They can't have it both ways. Either you control the world or you don't. So take half of the control. You are half of the population. Don't sit back and let this shit happen to you. You don't have to.
I wanted to add something to that, because I think one of the most successful ways that men seem to be fighting back is by creating a gigantic consumer group that can no longer be insulted and belittled with impunity because they control so much frickin' money. So maybe one of the best ways to do this is just pick up your controller and game. One of the best ways to fight back is to become part of that revolution, of that social change, and part of that consumer group who now has to be respected, because your choices matter. Your choices mean money.
And hold the people involved in the production of what you're consuming accountable for upholding ethical standards in their industry.
Yeah. And I also wanted to say that I think that, and I know this is coming from a woman, but I think if men recognize the vulnerabilities they have and hold women accountable for them, it's a hard task, but that could help as well. And then also women have to step up, because a lot of these changes we need to make them, and we're in the position to do them, so we need to do that. And I also wanted to talk to the topic. It's just, to me, it's just insane that we've gotten to this point. We now are looking down a barrel of the gun of fascism, brought to us by feminism, and brought to us by feminism because we cannot question feminism. Any feminist who comes out of the woodwork and says, not all feminists are like that, you're part of the problem. If you're more concerned with dismissing the criticism than you are with the criticism itself, you're part of the shield that's allowing this to happen. And it doesn't really matter the particular ideology that's being used to silence. It's that right now Feminism is the ideology being used to silence, and the reason why it's so useful is because everybody disavows criticism of it. So, yeah, it's time to criticize feminism. And apparently Lauren has big news, so I'm sorry, Rachel, but you should probably find out what Lauren is talking about. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're gonna host block me again.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm really stoked right now. Okay, so I just got an email. Thank you so much for everyone going and signing the petition. Gregory Allen Elliott's son just emailed me, and he said that he's really happy I set up the petition, and it's given my dad a lot of encouragement and has put some wind under his wings for these next few months awaiting a verdict. And I just launched a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo Life. If you'd like to speak over this is just speaking stuff. I'm going to share this on my Twitter ASAP.
How do we get to that particular crowdfunding? What's the link? What's the name?
Here, I'm gonna give it to you guys right now, and I'm gonna have a chat with his son just to make sure, just to confirm everything that it is done and all of that. But
the crowdfunding link is on Indiegogo.com, so I think it's the life category. Gregory Allen Elliott Twitter Trial Support Fund. So just do a search on Indiegogo on Gregory Allen Elliott, and probably you'll get it. If you have to, just include Twitter Trial Support. But go to there and help him out. And yeah, we will. Go ahead, Rachel. We have host blocked you long enough, so take it away.
All right. So speaking of affirmative consent, a new cell phone app is causing controversy. We Consent, an app created to try and reduce false allegations of sexual assault, is being slammed by anti-rape advocates who believe that it oversimplifies the concept of consent. The app works by first detecting human faces and asks that each participant say yes. This record is then uploaded as an encrypted record of consent for 7 years that can only be accessed by law enforcement. We Consent maintains that they support the idea of affirmative consent and want to promote a kind of mutual respect in regards to sex and relationships. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I don't think it's going to, of course, stop all false allegations, but the fact that both even went out of the way to try and make the video, period, I think it makes at least a bit of a statement, though. Because you're trying to say, okay, I'm putting this out there, and I totally agreed to this, and I don't know. I think it helps a little, but probably not nearly enough.
I saw some places online where feminists are actually protesting against this app, and they're giving some really lame reasons that really kind of contradict some of what they've said in the past. Like they're claiming that it promotes the idea that rape is a misunderstanding, when in fact they've promoted in the past the idea that rape is a misunderstanding in order to promote their yes means yes thing. And they're claiming that it promotes the idea that some rape accusations happen due to regret. Well, it would confirm or debunk that actually in the long run. If you see a lot of people coming out with rape accusations and then there's this app that can confirm that they consented, they're going to have to explain what changed and at what point and what happened, and then we'll end up with much more intricate and detailed hearings due to that. But yeah, the feminists actually are up in arms over this, as if an app doing what they are demanding that men do without an app is somehow bad. So basically, they want you to feel like you're required every step of the way to beg, but they don't want you to have any proof that you did it.
Basically, unless you set up a video camera like Patrick Bateman and you just film every single sexual encounter, where you both do the exact kind of thing that feminists want you to do, is like, oh, can I touch your boobs? Can I put my hand underneath your shirt? Can I suck your encyclopedic, oh, that sort of thing. It's, I don't know. What do these people want? They want sexual control. That's really what it seems that they want. They don't want this to be left up to anybody to decide what.
Oh, that is it, exactly what it is. It's sexual control. And reproductive control, more generally, right? Because sexual control and reproductive control have been sort of emotionally bound together and instinctively bound together up until the pill became available. But I mean, if you look at feminists in the late 1800s, when rubber condoms started to become available, they lobbied hard against making those available. Feminists lobbied against birth control, and the reason why was because the condom was a form of birth control that women couldn't control. That was something that men put on their dicks, and the feminists, the religious fundamentalists, the Christians and the Puritans, argued that the availability of condoms would lead to people sinning and rampant fornication and all of that stuff. Feminists protested the availability of condoms because they believed that all of the decision-making power regarding reproduction belonged in women's hands, and that men should have, not only should men have no power to inflict pregnancy on a woman, they should have no power to deny pregnancy to a woman. Okay? They wanted complete and total control. And if you look at rape laws, seduction laws, all of these things, I mean, because up until the 1960s in the U.S., there were laws called seduction on the books where any man who had sex with an unmarried woman could be convicted of a felony called seduction. It wasn't rape because she consented, but, he was doing something that he shouldn't sexually. And, there were potential consequences for her, and the way men escaped being sent to prison for that was, they would do the shotgun wedding thing. Essentially, now, the issue is that before birth control, that was entirely controlled by women. In order to control sex, women needed to control themselves, as well as men. Now that there's birth control, right? When women want to control sex and reproduction, they don't have to control themselves, and they don't want to control themselves, and they don't think that it's right or just that they should have to control themselves. So, yeah, women's sexual freedom, excellent, wonderful, wonderful thing. Women, you go, be a slut, fuck around, you just do whatever you want. Nobody should have any right to shame you for that or judge you for that. But men are going to pay one way or another.
Well, feminists believe that their whole crux is that they're punching upwards, right? So one of the things that they have to sort of like restate over and over, as ridiculous as it sounds, is that men have more sexual power,
agency.
than women do. Yeah.
No, they don't. Not even fucking close. Sorry.
I remember Lacey Green said it on one of her videos once, men have more sexual power than women, and my brain about imploded, which is that's the most retarded thing I've ever heard. And
what is sexual power? It's the power to get laid.
Oh, well, yeah.
I could go up to a guy on the street. I could go up to 5 random guys on the street, and 3 of them, and just say, hey, you want to go fuck? And 3 of them would take me up on it.
I think all 5 of them would probably do it. I think that men in general don't say no to sex unless they're like committed and happy where they are.
They're starting to. They
are starting to, but I think that there's still a lot of thirst out there. And the fact that this climate is so hostile towards them sexually, it's only making them thirstier. So it takes a lot of self-control to be able to fight those, to fight the thirst. I think you guys in the chat know what I'm talking about. But the thing I was going to say is that if feminism assumes that men have more sexual power and that they hold all of the sexual cards, then, and of course that they're punching up, which is very important to maintain the ideology, like the only way it can persist is if it's seen as, constantly in a need of help and struggle and all that, then yeah, I mean, it would only make sense that the controlling sex is not really control if to the people that it's trying to influence. It's just sort of like taking back. It's like take back the night, They're just basically trying to get their piece. They want to sit at the table.
Such a load of shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hannah.
Oh, it totally is. Hannah, I'm sorry. I'm done.
Oh, you guys didn't step on me. I had spoken and then was done. But
okay.
During the rest of the discussion, I did think of something else that I hadn't said that I've previously talked about related to this. The affirmative action, affirmative consent standard, or the enthusiastic consent standard, that narrative that feminists are putting forth for this is their way of basically admitting that they're lying through their teeth when they say they oppose traditional gender roles and gender stereotypes.
Yes.
They just oppose those times when those roles and stereotypes don't benefit their political advocacy. The idea that the person seeking sex always has to be male and the person whose consent matters always has to be female is about as traditional of a gender role and a gender stereotype as you can possibly get. So they're quite happy to promote traditional beliefs about men and traditional beliefs about women, and the very things that they say are toxic and the very things that they say are aspects of rape culture, if they're using them to promote their own narrative on a standard for consent. And it's one of the reasons why,
or on anything.
Yeah, but it's also one of the reasons why I've said you cannot use consent. You must be able to use the right to refuse as a standard for what determines rape. You have to be able to teach women that because we can say no, we should say no. Even if we can't back it up with physical force because of the circumstances, making it known that you are refusing, that you are averse, should be all that it takes to make the situation rape. And I'm not talking about the girls that say, well, I really shouldn't do this, and then stick their hand down a guy's pants. I'm talking about actual no. You make it stick in that circumstance. But to come up with all these varying shades of gray with respect to consent, and then obfuscate and then turn around and say that the shades of gray that they've come up with make it so that men have to beg or they're committing rape is ridiculous. You basically need to understand that the act of rape is the act of contravening another person's right or ability to refuse, not the act of failing to get proper communication. It's not an accident. It's a deliberate act. The people who do it are doing it on purpose. It is a violent act, and it needs to, this whole obfuscation and spread tactic needs to stop.
Brian, get in here quick. I'm holding her off.
Oh, okay, real quick. I just wanted to say that, to speak to what you guys were just talking about with consent and stuff. It's funny because there was an article I read recently about these male waiters that work in. They wear kilts, and they were talking about all of the physical harassment that they got. But they never really complained, and there was another article I read about male strippers and the kind of stuff that goes down at like these, male strip parties, and all of the stuff that they deal with. And it's funny because it's when Hannah said, women need to feel as though they have the power to say no so that they can say no. Feminism tells them that that's not really going to help. That's why you have that, teach men not to rape, don't teach women to protect themselves, because you don't want to give women power, even though they have power. I mean, they have almost all the power. I mean, at the end of the day, what is the saying, men propose, women dispose. Women do the choosing when it comes to who they want to sleep with. But if you trick women into believing that they actually don't have choice, even though they have all the choice, then you're going to create this just bastardization of a relationships between men and women that we have now, where it's just like confusing and scary and dangerous, and everyone's scared of the other person, and it's just all messed up.
I just find the entire thing.
I'm gonna say something before you go.
All right. Yeah. No. You can go ahead.
All right. So I just wanted to speak to that. You know, Brian, if men don't value their sexuality, I don't think women will learn to value it either. And what's interesting to me is the statistics. Statistically, if you look at the most accurate statistics, there is an equal number of men being physically forced into sex. So there's a situation where men are refusing sex at the same degree as women. And they don't want it. So I don't mean to take issue with what you said, but I think that statistically there is at least some pushback there against just a blanket agreement or blanket consent to women's sexuality from men. And I wanted to maybe I could get your opinion on that, Brian.
Well, I mean, that may be the case, and I'm not gonna deny it. But then, like, the question becomes, because I've seen videos of men that have tried to say no, and women that have felt entitled to them, you know, in a way that is far more, and then people who have been, you know, like, think about teachers who have slept with their male students, and what the general attitude is how lucky the male student was if the teacher is attractive, or even if she's just kind of average, and they don't consider it to be something heinous. I do think that there is pushback that is proportionate, but the way that we treat the pushback is kind of telling too. It is.
Like, this is what I wanted to bring up too, because I had brought up the thing with the kilts earlier today in a conversation, and I also brought up a case. I think it was in 1920 something. There was a young man who worked in an office with a bunch of young women, and he turned 18. It was his birthday, and these young women in the office, about, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, had been teasing him all day about how he was going to get his birthday kisses when the workday was over, right? He was going to get, and he was, you know, they later testified that he was made very uncomfortable by this, and he really was not interested in receiving kisses from all the young women in the office. At closing time, when the workday was done, they swarmed him. And in the process of trying to fend them off, he tripped and fell, and he had an ink eraser in his pocket, and he fell on the ink eraser, and it stabbed him between the ribs. And all of the women are looking at this young man on the floor, and they all just run away and leave his boss to find him hours later, dead, bleeding, having bled to death, right? Could have been saved if somebody had summoned summoned an ambulance, but no, he bled to death on the floor of this office on his 18th birthday. And the police described the entire thing as a silly prank gone horribly wrong. There was no indication like that maybe it's not okay for 6 or 7 or 8 women to swarm a man with, and sexually assault him. And on top of that, under the laws of the time, if a woman had been in distress, physically injured, assaulted, crying out for help, in any way noticeably in distress and being assaulted, every single able-bodied man who was observing that would have been expected by law to step in under hue and cry laws.
And
right?
They probably would have wanted to, too.
Well, and they would have been expected and legally bound to do that, and they would have been subject to prosecution for failure to do so. And yet these women, they were let off scot-free for allowing this young boy who they had swarmed with their sexual advances to bleed to death because they didn't want to get into trouble.
Okay.
So
I don't know what. Okay, just before Brian, guys, I got to respond to this because it's moments like these. I don't know whether or not to invent a new word to describe myself that isn't woman. Like
Yeah.
invent a new gender to be part of, Or just tell women like that to get the fuck out of my gender.
Oh, I know.
Out.
Withman. You can bring Withman back.
Yeah, we can be Withman. You can be women.
Wehrman. I could be a Wehrman. Mike, we're Wehrman now.
Hooray!
Yeah, you're actually male adults, not just adults.
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren, did you know that?
I'll be a Wolfman.
Yeah, you're Withman.
The
I'm a
internet.
Withman.
A man used to refer to a gender-neutral adult. So man is actually not a gender. It was just a gender-neutral adult. And Wehrman was an adult man, or an adult male, and Withman was an adult female. So for some reason, over time, we evolved not to have a special category for men, a special gender category for men. We evolved away from actually giving men their own word, Wehrman, into just calling them generic adult, generic sexless adult.
Yeah.
And women retained the special identity.
Because all children will call girls, and boy was another word for slave or servant. And but then that evolved, and girl applied to the female child, and boy the male child.
So we're all Wehrman and Withman here.
Yeah,
and we're all girls or slaves.
Yes.
Well, no. Well, not in this room. In this room, we all have our own special gender identity based on what we choose to identify as, I guess.
We're badgers.
I'm a where self.
I'm whatever I can transmogrify into. Thank you very much.
But
I choose not to identify by my gender. I'm a transhuman.
Oh, you had to go making it gay, didn't you, Alex?
Oh my God, it's so risky, Hannah.
Yeah,
Jesus, Hannah. Like,
my gender is a small aspect of my identity. I'm a trans photographer and a trans cosplayer and a trans gamer geek and
Your gender is mayonnaise.
Yeah, my gender is mayonnaise.
And I don't think it's a small aspect. I think it's a pretty good size aspect. But
no, that's about the least important thing about me.
Okay, Brian, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, though, at the end of the day, Allison, I agree that men do have to value their sexuality more, and it's going to be really difficult because men, they put a lot of value on their sexuality, but only when it comes to how women respond to it. Like they value themselves almost entirely on female attention, and they will tear each other down to get it. And I think that's the challenge, is that men have to come together, and they have to help lift each other up, and and also have more self-respect. And I wonder how hard that also is to do when you're a young boy, growing up in this society that's pretty aggressive and towards men, just maleness and masculinity in general. I just watched.
Throw rocks at them.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched a music video by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He did a comedic video. I'll be quick, and I know you guys got more stories to do. And essentially, it's supposed to be a comedic video, kind of like the Lonely Island ones. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt sitting in a park with a friend who's like this other musician. I don't know who he is. And they're looking at a woman, an attractive woman that's sitting there reading a book, and the friend is like, "Oh, look, check her out, she's hot." And Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who, by the way, if you guys don't already know, he's pretty much been very vocal about being a feminist. He looked at her and he said, "She's not my type." And then he looks over, and he says, "Now that's what I'm talking about." And it cuts to a single mother pushing a baby carriage. And the guy who's there is like, "She's pushing a carriage, dude." And then he goes into this song about how men need to start dating single mothers, and that they need to evolve past their primitive, their primitive thinking of going after women that they find attractive, and instead going after women that have children by other men. It's like this, and I'm like, this is the craziest, most blatant propagandist thing I've ever seen. And it's telling men what their preferences should be. And, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is a man, and he's doing this to other men. And he's not living by this. You know that he's not you know, like practicing what he preaches. I mean, he's like a superstar that can have whoever he wants. So this is just so
Oh
you
no,
gotta look it up.
it's
It's
like that.
hilariously bad.
It's like that idiot from Know Your Meme. You know, he was the dude who did the video on Know Your Meme over 9,000. And I think he did some Vsauce stuff, and now he does shit for PBS. And he did a video recently, essentially saying that egalitarianism is bullshit. Feminism is great. The reason is because egalitarianism is a men's rights project, which I would agree with him. It is, but that feminism is a human project, right? And like I'm just listening to this, and I'm thinking, you know, you're a successful man. You seem intelligent. You know, that over 9,000 Know Your Meme video, you know, you seemed like a smart and canny guy. You know, a skeptical guy. You were the guy who was like, oh, Oprah believed that whole bullshit with we have over 9,000 penises and they're all raping children right now, right? You thought that she was ridiculous, yet you're buying this bullshit? Like, I'd be more inclined to believe we have over 9,000 penises and they're all raping children right now than to believe the shit that feminist feeds people, right? You know, like, I just, how is it that these men that, you know, I've liked them in all kinds of contexts, right? Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I've liked him in the movies he's done. This Know Your Meme guy, I've liked him in the stuff he's done. Mark Ruffalo, I've liked him in all of the movies he's been in, right? Joss Whedon, I actually like a lot of the stuff that he's directed, right? And yet, I can't respect them because they've proved that they're retards.
Yeah, I mean, men
In
are
this one way.
men are their own worst enemy because we don't have unity, and I
No,
think
I
that's
mean,
what we need.
you can see that in Blackstone, right? Blackstone, his commentaries on the laws of England and Wales, right? And he's like, oh, all those men of previous generations, they customarily beat their wives, and the laws of the time written by men allowed them to do it. But we in these more enlightened times, we men, we're different. You know, women now have the security of the peace against their husbands. And I bet if you went back 200 years, you'd find some other guy writing some commentary on the common laws of frickin', I don't know, whatever place. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, those guys, you know, my great-grandfather's generation, they all just freaking beat their wives all the time, and it was totally cool. You know, everybody thought it was great, right? But we're just better than that. And then you see all of these conservatives talking about, oh, you know, one of the biggest reasons why Islam is, you know, and Islamists and fundamentalist Islam is horrible is because it's so misogynistic. And what do? They rape and they beat their women and they oppress their women. And, you know, and it's like every single thing with these men, particularly high status men, is I treat my women better than you do. Therefore, you're a bad man and I'm a good man.
Men are always sort of looking outside themselves. It's to the point that almost becomes sort of the meaning of a good man, to be able to look at someone else's needs and someone else's desires over yours, and it's become the point where that's all we know. So that's our only solution to every problem we encounter, even if that's causing its own problem. Like those, you know, birds back in New Zealand who have a really the kakapo. It has a really bizarre sort of mating sequence, and it does that because it's unpredated. Like you know, the only thing it knows is how to breed as slowly as possible. That's what it's good at. And so when it's in a different environment, that the only thing it knows how to do becomes its downfall.
Well,
unless you're Stephen Fry, in which case you get raped by a cockroach.
As a man, the only thing you know how to do is look outside yourself. So your solution to everything is to look further outside yourself, and it just gets worse.
And it's doubly worse when you are like constantly taking away male spaces. Where, I mean, not that we need them to be specifically male, but like, you know, like guys don't have as many places where they can be together and be dudes and like just do dude stuff and like bond. You
Well,
know?
and I think that men actually need that. Like humans are quite unique in terms of species, just given the level of cooperation between unrelated males. Um, like I don't know that there is another species on this planet, mammal, reptile, bird, whatever, where the males, even when they are not genetically related, are as cooperative as human males are. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we are where we are right now, living in nice heated air conditioned houses and and having these incredible infrastructures. And if you look at the flow chart for how a pencil is made, it's just this massive, huge, complex interaction of like multiple industries and multiple infrastructures, right? And so, I mean, this is what was created out of male cooperation, but male cooperation is fragile. Male
Okay, I got orders
cooperation,
from headquarters.
male cooperation is not something that we should be throwing away.
Well, first of all, I don't think it's that fragile because there are pheromonal controls over it, so it must have evolved at some point.
Yeah.
It's fragile in this society, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Rachel is quietly skulking in the back. Wants to move on.
Okay.
I
Right,
want
so
to
let's
do I want to do the next topic. But before I go into the next topic, minor correction. It wasn't Stephen Fry that got raped by the kakapo. It was that wonderful zoologist he had with him in that particular documentary called Last Chance to See. Watch it. Watch it. Anyway, okay, going to the topic at hand. Proposed scarlet letter for rape allegations. Newly proposed legislation would make false rape allegations a potential career ender. This legislation would create a record that would follow college students around after being accused or convicted of sexual assault and could potentially follow them into the workforce, meaning that if a case is mishandled by a college and a student is denied their due process rights, that case could destroy their chances of attending another school and having a job. In a case like the Duke Lacrosse rape case, where many of the students transferred to other schools, such an option might be entirely impossible, as the attempted transfer would brand them as a rapist, and the mere allegation of sexual misconduct would be on their record for life. So, yeah, this is a proposed legislation in the U.S. that there would be sort of this record that would then follow you around if an allegation had been made against you.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there must be fire kind of thing.
So you got a big scarlet letter on you.
But also, at the same time, we're going after realizing that a lot of the inmates on death row and things like that have been wrongfully accused, and we're having this very hypocritical attitude that on one hand we're releasing prisoners that have been proven to have been held wrongly, and for this, against this rape culture, we're basically branding men who have not even been proven to do anything wrong as ending their careers, and I just don't understand that.
What drives me crazy is that even if you look at convictions, and the common complaint from feminists is that it's just very, very difficult to convict a man, right? Men just tend to get away with rape, right? They just do because it's just so hard to prove. So we need to make it easier to convict them. Even with that, and how inherently difficult it is to prosecute a crime successfully that generally occurs in private, generally leaves no evidence specifically of a crime, just evidence of a legal act that is only made illegal through a state of mind. Even with that, the majority of exonerations brought about by the Innocence Project since they began, the majority were men convicted of either sex crimes or crimes with a sexual element. So rape, sexual assault, serial rape, rape and murder, all of those things. Sexual murders, the whole bit, right? Anything that had a sexual context against a woman or a child, a man seems to be much more likely to end up in prison and then get out because he was exonerated. Right, this is our rape culture, our culture that endorses rape. You're more likely to be wrongfully convicted of rape than of any other crime.
All right.
Yeah, that's really troubling.
Before Lauren has to go because she's going to be talking to Greg, Alan's son. So why don't we give Lauren an opportunity to say goodbye and give some parting thoughts, and then we'll usher her out the door.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. I always love coming on the show, and you're all fantastic. I do have to go talk to Greg's son just to 100% confirm it's him. I'm already fairly certain he's got his Twitter. Greg's following his Twitter account, and it seems pretty legit. So I'm just gonna make sure that everything is 100%, so that we can start raising money for Greg and his lawsuit. And these feminists do not have the opportunity to completely tear him apart. I've posted the fundraiser that his son has created on my Twitter. And if I can get Greg's son to come on the show, I will. I will ask him for sure.
Well, definitely. We'll have him on and have him shill.
Yeah, awesome.
Shill
All
out
right.
his heart. Okay, so thank you again for coming on, Lauren. It's always a pleasure to have you.
For sure. Keep up the good work. I'll listen to the rest of the show later.
Okay.
Can I say something super
No!
No,
correct.
Okay. No, because I gotta leave soon too. But to Karen's point about prison, I was just gonna say, do you know what the last male space is? It's the only one that's all male space. It's prison. That really is the only one. Like that they can't have bathrooms. They can't have what is it? Sports. What do they call that? It's like role-playing games for people who like baseball. I mean, like the only thing that they have left. The only thing they have left is prison. So, there you go. Break a law, and you can do some bonding. It may not be the bonding you want, but you will get to do some.
That's pretty messed up, Brian. That's really no laughing matter. That's really sad. But actually, what I wanted to say about this topic, I'm echoing pretty bad from somebody's end.
You're echoing because Karen keeps unmuting herself.
No, you know what? I have been unmuted through this entire radio show, and there has never been an echo.
Well, there's an echo.
The only time I have muted myself is when I have coughed.
You know, you have these unbelievable powers of having something wrong with your connection or your echo or your headphones or something.
Nothing going on over here.
All right. Well, the echo seems to have gone. So go ahead, Rachel.
Well, I'll just finish. What I was going to say is that I'm still echoing. But anyway, what I was going to say is that my concern, at least my concern when I hear this story, is that you have a lot of these cases, these high-profile cases, and they can take months and months to investigate. And so in the process, usually students who are involved in these things, they try to transfer to another school while they're awaiting for all of these things to go through. They're still having the trial and everything, but they're still trying to pick up their life and move on somewhat because, you know, if they know that they're innocent, but that's the thing. The schools that they apply to aren't going to know that. And so if there's this mark on their record for even having an allegation against them that they're currently fighting, they won't be able to just pick up and go and work on their education while all of this goes through. I mean, we're talking about months and months and months, or maybe even years, that they may not be able to continue their education, and then they can't go and then apply for a job because that's then also on their record. Who's going to want to accept a rapist into their school if they know that this person has been or an alleged rapist, basically? Well, they all would be alleged rapists. But the idea, the thought and process that's going to be in their mind is, this person is a rapist, why would I let them into my school? Why would I let somebody who is a high risk into my school? Why would I let somebody who is this high risk into this job? Why would I give them that job? So you would basically destroy somebody's life as if they had actually committed a crime when none had been committed at all. And the amount of money and legal fees and everything that it would take to exonerate them, not everybody has that. So this person would basically be unemployable. It destroys me to think about that.
And that proves that feminists know Their narrative on rape culture is a lie. This is proof that we don't live in a rape culture because it shows that feminists are fully aware of how powerful a rape accusation is. Think about it. They're basically demanding that a rape accusation, just the accusation, if the guy is never convicted, follow a man for the rest of his life. Why would they make that effort if we live in a culture of tolerance for rape? There would be no point because people would look at that information and go, meh, he's just accused of rape, no big deal. It's only worth doing if the accusation carries a stigma. And that stigma clearly demonstrates that we do not live in a culture of tolerance for rape. We live in a culture of intolerance for rape. And feminists have been exploiting it this whole time. And we rightfully live in a culture of intolerance for rape. The problem is we also live in a culture where we believe accusations too easily. We don't seek evidence. We react with outrage. And vigilante violence has replaced due process and the use of the legal system. And this initiative is an effort to further exploit that because they know that there is a stigma attached to the accusation, and we do not live in the culture that they are claiming. We live in a culture that they can exploit instead.
And this right here, this is just one quick thing, and then I'll give this to whoever. This right here would make having sex in college, at any point during college, such a high risk for a man that he should probably just consider not doing it at all. Like, period. Or I don't even know if you should do that sort of thing with a fellow college student, even nowadays in this current climate with affirmative consent standards, because it's not simply enough to say yes and then just have sex. It's not simple enough to, initiate it with physical contact in ways that are very obvious that they want to have sex. No amount is good enough.
I wanted to say something. I want to put a thought in here. Feminism is just the latest form of sexual fundamentalism to use our suspicion and dislike and distaste for male sexuality as a tool of control and authoritarianism. So it's not, well, it matters that feminism is the latest, but it isn't the only one that does stuff like this. And it's
not new.
And until we actually address the underlying conditions that allow people to exploit these kinds of social tools, and you see it in any situation where people want to create a threat narrative against a group of people. They implicate the men's sexuality as being predatory, rapacious, or they're pedophiles. You see that with the anti-Jewish propaganda. You see that with anti-black propaganda. So this is a very common way of creating a threat narrative against a group, and it has been employed by all kinds of totalitarian groups throughout history. And the only way to stop it, feminism is just the latest, the only way to stop it is to challenge it, to challenge the root of it, challenge the idea that male sexuality is this toxic thing that's outside of society rather than a component that creates family and unity and love and all of those wonderful things. And I don't know how far we can get challenging it, but that is that basic, that's the root of all of this. Otherwise, it will remain a tool to be exploited by the next fascist regime. And I just wanted to point that out. Mike wants to speak, so go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, if a woman wanted to tie a man down sort of legally and officially own him and his labour, she had to get married to him. Divorce was the sort of Damocles. If you put a foot wrong either side of the tightrope, if you don't do what she says, you can be accused of whatever it takes to divorce you, and your life's as good as over. And with yes means yes, that ownage is brought forward to the moment a man, a moment a man touches you, because at that moment the sort of Damocles is rape. If you put a foot wrong either side, if you don't do what she says, you can be accused of what it takes for you to go to prison. So yes means yes won't just result in a load of innocent men going to prison. It will result in a layer above that of innocent men doing whatever they can to not go to prison. It's sort of turning men into a, well, slave class. I don't know how to say this in a non-sensational way. Someone save me from the sensationalism.
Well, it is sensationalism, but at some point we got to recognize that these are really bad signs.
Yeah.
We are looking at a situation where accusations of harassment become convictions, in not just in social. Karen, I gotta mute you again. I apologize, but
okay.
and I don't apologize actually. Woman, whatever, you're echoing constantly. Anyway, an accusation of harassment on Twitter this should have been thrown right out. Like, there's no way that this should have gone to trial. That they accused this man of harassing them on Twitter. And this is setting some really unpleasant precedents, and not just that they're harassing him. They accuse him of harassing based on him disagreeing with them. This is a very bad precedent to set. This is the thin end of the wedge that we're seeing. And so when you say that this is alarmist, Mike, you're right, it is alarmist, but at some point someone has to sound the alarm. And usually it is the artists. We're sort of the canary in the coal mine because we are on the edge of what people consider acceptable thought. We are exploring those little gray wibbly areas because we're artists, and that's what we do. We find the barrier between what we consider polite and impolite in society, and we explore that barrier. And so we are the first people who get on the chopping block when controls comes down, because we are, I don't know, what are we, Mike, the artists?
Daring.
It's something like not giving a fuck, isn't it?
Well, I think artists give a fuck, but they don't give a fuck about social conventions, perhaps. So
I think that's absolutely right. That it's essentially the artists care about what they care about, and if social convention is in the way of that, then they will bulldoze over social convention to.
Yeah, artists don't play to market.
About.
They build audiences rather than play to market. See what I mean?
Yeah, and like essentially, and it is. I mean, if you even look at, and this again, as Allison said, like. So much of this is not new, right? There's as my dad used to say, and he got it from some wise person somewhere, there's nothing new under the sun, right? There's only 11 supposedly different actual plots that people just keep rewriting over and over again. And when it comes to the suppression of male sexuality, like when all societies that have turned into civilizations, right, rather than remaining kind of living nomadic lifestyles, hunter-gatherer lifestyles in a jungle somewhere or whatever, all of the ones that turned into societies controlled female sexuality. And the way they controlled female sexuality was through monogamous marriage and through essentially the modestly dress modestly, right? Now, if you go back even just 100 years, right, some of the ways that our society controlled male sexuality, like a parent could buy from Sears, mail order, right, could buy a device to strap over their son's genitals so that whenever he got an erection, large spikes would dig into his penis and cause him excruciating pain. Right? These devices, several different designs, were available through mail order catalogs to, prevent your sons from, getting all head up, self-abuse, you don't want them to be masturbating, they'll turn into sex fiends, and all of this incredibly bizarre stuff. Circumcision was brought in the U.S. as a way to calm the male sexual organ, and therefore essentially to suppress and diminish male sexuality. It was essentially believed at the time, or the huckster who hawked it, at the time said it, and people believed it, that if you don't circumcise your sons, if you don't cut away half the skin of their penises without anesthesia, because the pain is very useful psychologically, if you don't do this, they're going to turn into rampant sex fiends, right? They're going to be doing all kinds of nasty, horrible stuff to themselves and to women, and you know, oh my goodness, like, and they're gonna become mentally ill, and they're gonna have epilepsy, and they're gonna like get spina bifida and all kinds of bullshit like that, right? The idea of controlling male sexuality is so firmly entrenched in our society that we don't even notice it, right? And when I go to a strip club where it's a regular strip club with female strippers and mostly male clientele, all of the male clientele, it's a hands-off policy, right? They are strictly hands-off. They are super respectful. And if they step out of line, if they even go and attempt to make a grab, there's a bouncer there ready to freaking rough them up and kick them out, right? And I've been to a strip club on ladies' night, and it's a fucking freak show. These ladies have no control whatsoever, and I have actually talked to somebody who managed a male strip company, and his strippers said they would rather do, they're mostly straight, almost all straight, they would rather do gigs at gay bars than on ladies' nights, because at least the men know how to keep their hands to themselves.
Well, I had a similar experience with cosplay, as we're talking about cosplay is not consent and stuff like that, that I've actually gotten groped and touched by women that I take photos with all the time, and I personally don't mind it, but it's still this frivolous attitude that women feel like they can completely get away with it, and they can, and they do all the time, while men are getting shamed into even taking photos of cosplayers now through this cosplay is not consent idea. That's basically what it's given us. It's given us even creepier situations of people taking photos of you without your knowledge because they're too afraid of being a creeper by approaching you and asking you, because that is the atmosphere towards men only, though. And it's not towards women. Women have complete freedom to touch and hug and approach without asking consent, without asking if they can do it. It's a constant at conventions, for instance.
I just wanted to say, yeah, it's a double standard. Men's bodies seem to be public access, whereas women's bodies are very, very tightly controlled, or by social norms that say that you have to have consent every step of the way. And I've heard that too as well, Karen, about strippers, male strippers being very badly treated by female clientele, which I actually had an experience as well. This was in something called Yowie Fest in about 2006, which I went to, and there were male volunteers there, and there was this particular woman who was just appallingly, her behavior towards the guys there was just really horrible. Like just presumptuous. Yeah. And they even had in their literature, these are volunteers, you have to treat them with respect. And she had obviously read this, and she still treated them like they were some sort, not even human. They were just like
meat.
Meat. Here, come here, dog. Come here. Give it. Like they were a subhuman. And I remember I looked at her and I gave her the stare, and I maintained it until she backed the fuck off. And I would suggest other women do that too. If you see women treating men like public property,
or women, or other women,
that's public property, and the woman or the man does not look like he's enjoying it or she's enjoying it, then make it known. And I've even done that in the reverse scenario, because there was some slave auction, and these sort of less than mature men were heckling the people who had volunteered to be slaves. It's a nerd thing. They have slave auctions at these conventions, and I would turn around and I said something. It's like, yeah, these people are volunteers. You should respect them. And this is what you're saying is insulting. But even in that case, it didn't go. He was heckling, but it didn't go to the same extent of ownership that I felt from the woman. Anyway, so stick up. And when people do this thing, when women do these things, like they have this sense of ownership, or if somebody's just being rude to someone who's on a vulnerable position, we gotta have each other's backs, as it were.
I agree. I absolutely agree. It's like the level of and there. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go overboard about it. I mean, the level of touching that I do with my customers at my job, I'll touch them on the shoulder, I'll touch them on the arm, and I'm joking with them, and so you sort of put your hand on their shoulder to let them know that you're just kidding, right? When you tell them, oh yeah, no, I've billed you, I'm done with you, you can get your own freaking coffee, fuck off, right? And then you touch them on the shoulder and smile, right? And I do this with male and female customers, but essentially the male servers, they don't do that. They don't touch their customers. They don't touch their male customers because that would be just weird. And they don't touch their female customers because that would be highly inappropriate. And so essentially you have men who walk around, and often they're just deprived of human contact. If they don't have a significant other, if they don't have family nearby, if they don't have people that they can hug or they can whatever, right? They are often completely, they'll go days and days and days, weeks without actually coming into physical contact with another person. And that's a really horrible thing too. So essentially what I would love to see is some kind of middle ground where people aren't afraid of touching each other, and they're not going to construe every single human touch in a sexual way as some kind of like violation, but also where women learn to fucking keep their hands to themselves.
Yeah, well, middle grounds, wouldn't that be nice, right? It seems like everybody resists them. We're all in a death match to have our particular point of view reign supreme, I suppose. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
There we go. I'm like sitting here trying to unmute the whole time. I have kind of an odd perspective I can contribute to this. We talk a lot about the feminist use of the word objectification as it is, and we talk about a lot about sexual objectification and so on. When I cosplay, most of the time I do not cosplay necessarily sexy characters or in revealing clothing and stuff like that. I like some horror characters, and I don't really right now have the body shape for sexy clothes. So I've noticed that not being in sexy clothes doesn't mean you don't get attention. Like I cosplay as that chick from The Ring. Because I've got the long dark hair, I can make it look wet, I've got the long nightgown and everything. And I think sometimes women have a habit of interpreting attention as sexual when it's not. And at a lot of times, female cosplayers will get upset that people want to take pictures with them because they've done a good job of portraying a character. I just went to zombie walks dressed as the chick from The Ring. And I had people come up and ask to have their pictures taken with me because I did a good job of cosplaying a character. I don't think there was anything sexual in that. I looked scary as fuck. In fact, when I stood where I wasn't readily noticeable until you came around the corner, there were people that jumped and screamed when they saw me. And yet I had people come running over. Can I take a picture with you? Can I have somebody take my picture with you? And I had that all night. And it wasn't exploitation. It wasn't offensive. It wasn't anything. So while we have this situation where women don't keep their hands to themselves when they are sexually attracted, even though men get accused of that more, it's just as bad with women, or in fact possibly worse, because nobody perceives it as a bad thing when women do it. We also, I think, have the situation where because women are sexualizing themselves, they then have predisposed themselves to interpret attention as sexual, whether it is or not. And there are women being offended at somebody asking, can I have my picture taken with you? When all the person is doing is admiring what a good job they've done cosplaying, or what a great image that they have come up with, what a great character they've portrayed, whether it's cosplaying or stripping or just being famous as an actress or singer or anything, that they like what you have presented, they identify with what your public persona is, and they want photographed with that. And it's kind of ridiculous to me that we turn around and demonize just men for doing that.
Yep. And I wanted to. This is the time. I want to thank everybody who's joined us: Lauren Southern, Karen Strong, Hannah Wallen, Anna Cherry, Mike Stephenson, Rachel Edwards, Brian Martinez. Briefly, thank you for joining us. And I will. Our patron, if you enjoy this show, our patron is at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And before I call it a night, I want you, listening now, to take a moment and imagine that this is the very last Honey Badger Radio broadcast you will ever hear. What does it feel like to know you'll never listen to us again? We are a group of artists and writers who decided to take a stand and speak for those groups and ideas that are being silenced. We do this using our own time and resources that are not infinite. If we are going to be able to continue, we need your support. If you want us to expand our reach, you need to step up to the plate. If just a percentage of you, our listeners, patroned us to the tune of $5 a month, we could do so much to maintain and expand our voice. You can make a one-time contribution through PayPal at honeybadgersradio@gmail.com, or you can become our patron at, once again, www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Will you, listening to me now, be the one to make sure we don't go silent? Thank you.